Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for letting me pause and enjoy my wedding. I am wed now. Woot. I wanted to revisit something today that I made a TikTok about a long time ago, that I actually wanted to revise and try again on. So when I was a wee baby DM, I killed my first ever player character. And when this happened, when I killed my first ever player character, three things ran through my head. One, that was supposed to be a random encounter. It was not supposed to be deadly. That was not supposed to happen. That was an accident. It was a complete accident. Two, we don't have a cleric, and even if we did have a cleric, I have not given them any diamonds. So, no reviving. And this person was dead. I mean, failed their death saving throws, life had left their eyes, dead. And then the last thing that ran through my head is that we are in the middle of a dungeon on a time-sensitive mission, and if I don't give the guy who died on accident another player character, he is going to walk from the table and take two other people with him. That was really the big key thing for me. See, we were in the middle of a giant dungeon where they were going to go and fight the beholder who had been torturing the town and taking young women from the town, and they finally figured out who was doing it, and they were going to go defeat him, and he was in this cave in the middle of the forest. And so they went down deep into this cave, and it's a very descending cave, right? And so I gave them a random encounter of ropers, not remembering that ropers are kind of insane. And I killed a character. And it was really intense. And this character in particular, this person in particular, was not super into the game as is. They were having a lot of trouble understanding their character and what they had chosen as, like, I think they were druid, and they had a lot of trouble understanding, like, druid stuff. They had a lot of trouble understanding spells. They had a lot of trouble getting into RP. They just had a lot of trouble with the game. They weren't really clicking. It wasn't really vibing. And so I knew that if I told this person, hey, you have to wait until the end of the dungeon or something like that in order to get back into the game, which is what you normally do whenever someone dies in the middle of a dungeon, they would walk. And if they walked, they would take their two friends with them that were actually enjoying, but they were all a trio doing this. And if that happened, my players 6 would go down to 3, and 3 was not enough for me to do the beholder at the level that they were at. So it was a big cluster fluck in my mind. And I was so panicked. I was so utterly panicked about what I was going to do. Honestly, I tried to think of a time that I was more panicked, and I can't think of one, except maybe the story that I did previously about the worst table that I ever ran. I don't think I've ever been as panicked as this moment. So I adjourn them for the day, and I say, let me think of something. And I go home and I go, what the fuck am I gonna do? And I came up with something because there wasn't a jail. Everyone said that I came to and was like, what do I do about this? They said, put a jail in. Well, it was like a cave, like a stone cave, and it didn't make any sense for me for there to be a jail, nor was their plan to be a jail. Nor would I think this guy would like the idea of his person being jailed. He was more extravagant than that. So I came up with something that I'm pretty proud of. I just want to change a couple of things, and that is the revisiting that we're doing today, called the Bronze Curse. So the idea was the Bronze Curse. And what this curse was is a deep, ancient spell that has been used many times over by different lords and different creatures of great magical power. And it is a spell or a curse that the beholder in the lair would use to curse people who have come into his lair. So what would happen is an adventuring party or whatever, would come into the lair and would try to defeat the beholder. And the beholder would be like, haha, you puny little mortals and your silly little games and always needing to try to do things better. Just shut up already. And then the beholder would kill everyone except one person, and this one person would be cursed into becoming a bronze statue. Now, the person is still alive in the bronze statue. It's kind of a form of petrification, actually, but the bronze statue would then be placed in the lair of the beholder for the beholder to gaze upon as his trophy, as his prize, right? And the person in the bronze statue is kind of aware of time passages. It just feels like a really, really long time. Almost like whenever you first wake up and you're like, whoa, where am I? That's the kind of stupor that this person would be put under, right? And then tens of hundreds of years would pass, and these bronze statues would remain still in the position that they were put in by the beholder. Now, these bronze statues serve two purposes. They serve as a trophy, but they also serve as a defense mechanism. And this defense mechanism part is the part that is the most important. You see, it wouldn't recognize minions or monsters or mimics or any kind of creature that dwells in the dark, and it wouldn't recognize the beholder. But if a group of adventurers came across the bronze statue would actually activate. The beholder would take over the body of the bronze statue and would begin attacking these adventurers that have come into the beholder's lair. So that's the bronze curse. Here is how I presented the idea to the player. I told them, listen, I understand that you're not really liking what you're playing. You want to play something different. You want to play something a little easier to play. Now that you've got your teeth into D&D and you've got your feet wet and, all of that kind of stuff, why don't you look through the player's handbook and pick what you actually want to play, what actually sounds good to you? And they said, hey, a barbarian sounds amazing to me. And I was like, great. I understand that you kind of want to play more eccentric characters, and barbarians are not necessarily always eccentric. What if I could make your player character from any time period you wanted? And they were like, that sounds pretty interesting. And I'm like, hear me out. You play a character who has been trapped underground, cursed to be a bronze statue for like 100 years, 200 years, whatever you want. And then whenever your friends come by your bronze statue, you are going to break out of your bronze statue and start attacking your friends because you are cursed. It is your curse. And he's like, okay, I like this. And I'm like, then eventually at the end of each one of your turns, you're going to roll a saving throw. If you succeed 2 saving throws, you will break the curse. And when you break the curse, you are yourself again, and you are in power of yourself. And he was like, oh my God, I love it. This is amazing. This guy was really like showy. And he was like, this is showy, this is perfect, I love it so much, let's do it. So that is exactly what we did. I set up random encounters with bronze statues. I just used like captains and stuff like that as the NPC, as the stat block for the bronze statues. And so they would be attacked by these bronze statues. And then they saw the bronze statue of the Minotaur. And they were like, wow, this one's sick. This one's scary. Please don't come alive. And then it came alive. And they were like, oh no. And then instead of me saying what I hit and what I roll and all of that stuff, I asked the other player, what do you hit? What do you want to do? How do you want to attack them? And that made all of the other people at the table be like, why is he doing it? And so it was a lot of fun because they were figuring out that this was the new player character as he was figuring out that he needed, it was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun because we didn't tell anyone that we were doing this, and it ended up being a big surprise. And then he ended up breaking out in like 2 turns. He ended up succeeding both saving throws in 2 turns and breaking out. And yeah, that was the bronze statue curse, and how oh God, it was so scary. But I ended up thinking that this is a really good way to put a person in a game that is in the middle of a dungeon, because the other people didn't want to leave the dungeon. It was a time sensitive mission. Like, they needed to, I think I had the beholder kidnap someone. I think they were hanging over a vat of acid, and it was very time sensitive. And so they couldn't turn around and get another person. They couldn't, so there was no other choice but to do something in the dungeon. And for having to do something in the dungeon, and for having been a baby DM, I am so proud of myself for having thought of this. As for you implementing this into your setting, if you were caught in the same position that I am, there's a couple of things that I would recommend. One, I really, really, really would get the players' consent to doing the bronze curse to them. I wouldn't tell them, hey, you're going to be trapped somewhere for 100 years. I would say, hey, are you willing to be trapped somewhere for 100 years or 50 years? Are you willing to also give up your agency over your player characters so that you have to attack your friends and hurt your friends? Are you willing to make the saving throws? Are you willing to use these saving throws as a wisdom saving throw? Are you willing to do wisdom saving throws in order to see if you can, I would ask permission for all of this stuff, because at the end of the day, part of what you're doing by doing the bronze curse is taking away the agency of the player by forcing them to attack people that they don't like, the other players. And I think that it is important to get consent for taking away agency like that, but ultimately I think it's successful. So as long as you have consent, I don't think anything's wrong with it. The other thing that I would say is make sure that the wisdom saving throws are something that are easily obtained. This interaction worked so well because it only lasted for 2 rounds. So it was 2 rounds of people. I think that if it had lasted for more rounds, I think people actually would have gotten frustrated, or maybe actually really damaged in a way that is negatively infecting and impacting the way that they're going through this dungeon. It's not up to plan. It's not up, all of this kind of stuff. I think that it's important to not make this interaction last too long, just long enough to where they get the point of oh, he's working against us right now. I think it's good to have that point. But I would do 2 or 3 saving throws, successful saving throws, and it doesn't have to be in a row. It just has to be accumulative. That is kind of what I would do. And then also, after the saving throws happen and after everything happens, give them a moment to RP with each other and get to know each other, because this is going to be a new person in the game. This is going to be a new party member, and they do need a moment to get acquainted with one another, because he did just attack them. So they need a moment to gain their trust, gain allyship, make sure that everybody's okay, all of that kind of stuff. Those are kind of my tips for all of this. And finally, the final thing that I would say is just remember that this is a game at the end of the day. And if you need to bend some stuff, if you need to curve some edges in order to make it fun for every single person who's at your table, do that. I understand that I had to change around things and make bronze statues in my world, and it wasn't ideal, but also at the same time it's never going to be ideal, because we are human beings playing a game made by humans and adapting to human nature, and human nature is never ideal. So that's my biggest thing, is just make sure that you're willing to give your players the space to have fun when you also have fun, but make sure you're giving your players the space to have fun. It is no fun to watch everybody else play D&D while you sit there dead. That sucks. But yeah, that is going to do it for me. I just wanted to revisit this bronze curse and revisit how I interacted with this for the first time. It was so nice to actually accomplished something so well in my early on in my DMing career that was then foundational, because that's not the last time that I used the bronze curse. I've used the bronze curse twice now. I think it's so nice to have something so foundational to my confidence as a dungeon master of like, I can solve problems. And at the end of the day, I solved a problem that was going to be so detrimental in a way that ended up making everybody happy. And the guy was so much happier playing a barbarian. He was so much happier not being a spellcaster, and he was still a super eccentric barbarian. He had so much more fun playing a barbarian. So that's gonna do it for me. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. I also appreciate you being patient while I get wed. I will be back next week with regularly scheduled content, with a trinkets to side quest. Probably, maybe I need to stop telling myself that I'm going to do stuff, because I never do what I say. But I love you oh so much. You are always welcome at my table, and I will see you next week.